Okay, hey friends, welcome back to the channel. It actually has been a while. I can go back to my normal catchphrase, but it's been the cold months in my area and very little sunlight. So good old seasonal affective disorder is kicking in. But anyway, so last time we left off essentially failing to implement texture batching in the 2D renderer. However, what we actually ended up doing is I sort of realized that having a full-fledged 2D renderer right now is not what I want. What I want is the most basic of UI renderers, where I draw a panel or a square and I put some text on it. And I specifically want that for being able to debug rendering issues as I go into working on the 2D renderer. So essentially, the 2D renderer as we know it is kind of useless to me because I will still have to redo those things as a UI renderer. I'm not going to get rid of that code path. It'll kind of just be like dead code, specifically because like 99% of it is good, and all I really need to do is set up texture atlasing, and it'll be great. It's just that texture atlasing, one, isn't really a thing I want to get into right now, because I want to get to 3D rendering quickly, but also texture atlasing just like isn't a thing that I need for the basic 2D renderer. I need like a square with some color on it and formatted text, and even just like barely, like just on the screen in the right place text, not even formatted. So what I'm going to be doing is implementing that. So hopefully just this video, but potentially into the next video. It's going to depend on how quickly I code and things. Probably this video and the next video, though, I'll be working on the 2D renderer. So we're going to do just a light bit of planning, maybe like 3-4 minutes of planning for the renderer. And then I'm just going to like jump in to the thing. Okay, so we're going to do UI renderer planning, right? Throwback to those of you who remember that around this time last year I changed up my keyboard layout and couldn't have typed that anywhere near as accurately or quickly as I just did. So yay, progress. I'm back up to like 95 words a minute or something. Neat. Anyway, okay, so there are a couple of main points that we want to have for the UI renderer. So we want a top level render command that either is a command or a module, right? Like just a function or a module with lots of functions. I don't know. And for that top level render command, essentially we want to be able to generate a low level UI panel that has children. And those children are things that need to be rendered on the panel. And so I think in order to do this, at least I feel like UI in general should be more declarative than anything else. So in order to do this as declaratively as possible, essentially what I want to have is a UI panel struct, and also like UI child, yeah, I think it's going to be like UI child trait, something like, basically something that denotes that a specific thing, in this case it's going to be a struct that's going to have its own draw command telling you how to put it on the screen, so that a specific thing can be a child. So we'll just implement that with like a box, a vector of boxes for the UI renderer. Cool. Okay. So we want a UI panel struct. Let's UI panel. So much for typing accurately. UI child trait, and that will implement like text or like so we could do like the classic UI label, which then leaves us open to doing like a UI button, UI input, etc. Right? And so all of those then would implement the UI child trait. And then from there, yeah, so we need to set up the top level rendering, like the thing that you actually make calls to. We also need to have like UI things that are available publicly, so that what I want to be able to do is say I have a UI layer that I want to render for my game. What I'm going to do is I want to create a UI panel, or perhaps I want to even have above the UI panel, like maybe I want to have like a UI root or something like that, so that could have panels as children, so that I could build like the entire tree of like all of my UI and have a single call to the UI renderer to actually render it, right? And so essentially we have a so we've identified then at least two things that two methods that we want. So we want like draw tree, right? And that's going to take a UI root, and then we also we also have identified draw panel, and that's going to take an individual panel, right? So from that point, yeah, okay, so here's what we're gonna do is we're gonna start out, I'm getting right on the cusp of like the amount of time I wanted to take for the note part of this, but yeah, so we're gonna start out with the top level like UI renderer. It's just gonna have those two functions, draw tree, draw panel. I'm gonna ignore I'm gonna like stub out the UI root struct for now so that I can include it in draw tree, but it'll be unused. And we're gonna focus on draw panel. I just want to be able to draw a singular panel for right now. So I'm gonna set up that function, and then I am going to start working on the UI panel struct such that it can go through and render all of its children, etc. Right? Okay, so yeah, let's just fucking throw this back up here. We're gonna make a new directory. So it's gonna be UI renderer. And we'll give it a mod file. Okay, then in here, we're gonna say mod UI renderer. And there's not actually going to be anything in there yet, but we're just going to define a struct UI renderer. And then, yeah, that's it for now. That actually can't really go anywhere. And then in the, I think I'm going to put it in the primitives. That's the UI renderer. Fudge, where do I want to put these that they're a little more easily accessible? I think maybe game render, I think maybe in a top level UI folder here. I think that's what I'm going to do. UI mod.rs. Okay. And then that's not actually going to do anything. It's just going to do pubmod. Or no, it'll be mod panel, and then pub use panel UI panel is what we want to have for that. And so then here we're going to add a panel.rs, and then struct, it needs to be pub struct UI panel. Oops. Okay, then that is there. Great. Okay, so then here I will actually do a pub mod UI. And so when people are trying to get to an individual, like say I want to render a UI panel, I need to use Alkahest. It's going to go Alkahest render UI panel is how you're going to get that. Right? So I can define the panel in its own file, not there. I can define the panel in its own file here so that it keeps everything clean, but you're importing it directly from UI, which is great. What's this warning here? Missing documentation. I don't care. Okay. Okay, so there's our UI panel. I also want to do, not up there, mod root. I might just define the UI root here. Pub use root UI root. So you might see a couple of little like AI suggestion things. I'm testing out GitHub Copilot, and we'll see how that goes. And then same thing here. We're gonna go ahead and just stub out root, right? And then that needs to go pub, and boom. Okay, so that's got those stubbed out. So now here I can do use create render UI star, right? And so that is going to let me have access to both UI panel and UI root here. Actually, implement UI renderer, and we're going to say pub function of, let's see, not init, what the fuck, man. Yeah, so what were the two? We've got draw tree and draw panel. And that's all it's going to be, is draw tree, and I need the root with a reference to UI root. I mean, listen, that is very interesting, like, right? That's so cool. Okay. So I don't want all of that right now. This is just going to be stubbed out. And all we're doing here is stubbing. And then pub function, draw panel, boom. That was a great suggestion from Copilot. I'm digging it. But yeah, it kind of it takes it a minute to get acclimated, I think, and to figure out what it is that I'm working on right now. But yeah, so we've got both of those stubbed out. I'm not entirely sure if so I really like the idea of keeping the UI renderer as a service and the UI root panel child, whatever the fuck, just as like an aggregator of data. And so I'm thinking that I could probably... No, I think it might be better to just have the extra call to like a panel dot draw, right? So yeah, I think that I'm gonna go here. And let's see. Position, size, rotation, color, texture. Holy shit. Okay, alright. I see you. That is definitely interesting. Let's use ultraviolet, but I need Vec 2 and Vec 4 here. That is fucking crazy, right? And then create render. Is it texture? Can I access texture directly from here? Hub use primitive star. Like, yeah, alright. Texture. That is just awesome. Like, holy crap. I like that a lot. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, that is what it is. All right. It's a little like the AI suggestions are a little distracting. Admittedly, I'm not actually sure that I want to use this suggestion. I'm just very interested in the fact that it like popped it right out. But I guess there are other instances of doing something similar here in the code base, which it's using, but also like, wow. Okay. Damn, dude, this is like so distracting, right? Okay, so we've got the UI panel, and what we really want to do, actually, yes, is have a position, a size, rotation. I'm also going to have a const that is going to be, nope, close, quad vertices, right? As a vec on a, yeah, I think it is going to be F32. No, on a vec 3, and that needs to come in here. Vec 3 equals vec. Yeah, just because it's easier to do that. Yeah, so that has a centered quad. Oops. Is this? Yeah, it won't let me do that as a constant. Let me look back at the renderer 2D and remember what I ended up doing for this. Okay, so just a vec 4. Yeah, okay. Why didn't I just copy that? Because I'm a dum-dum. There we go. And then I've got our quad indices somewhere, don't I? Maybe not. I'm setting them somewhere else. Okay. Cool, yeah, okay, so quad vertices are there. So then I think, okay, so here's the plan. No, it's not that. I feel like I'm arguing with the computer at this point. Okay, so here's the plan, which is that we're gonna have the panel function as its own individual like batch, right? Yeah. So the panel is going to essentially render itself all of its text and textures, any of those potential things in a single, hopefully single batch. We'll still have the same like 10,000 limit, but essentially I want to draw the panel in a single draw call. And so what I'm gonna do is essentially copy over a lot of the code from the 2D renderer in terms of like setting up max vertices and setting up its VAO and stuff like that. And so I think that where was I going with this? So basically the UI panel is going to be a single batch. So what that means left at that is that each panel will require a separate draw call. And eventually, what I would like to do is have each tree be able to function as its separate draw calls, right? Because the draw call itself is kind of the expensive part here. Like we can only make so many of those within what is supposed to be a frame, right? Otherwise we slow down our frame rate. And granted, our frame rate's great right now. It's very, very optimized. But still. So we're going to set up the UI panel such that it can function as a singular thing and can draw itself with its own VAO. But also such that it can essentially just like take its data, like all of the batch information that would be sent to the renderer for a single call could just like give you that batch information. So maybe like pulling that out with like get buffer data or something like that, or maybe even just like holding on to its own copy of the data. Which actually it has to have its own copy of the data anyway, because normally with a batch we would be setting... Yeah, because I hadn't fully optimized the batching anyway, so like a cool thing you could do with batching is to keep track of where exactly everything is, and then only update anything that's changed when you are pushing, like when you're flushing things to the renderer. That's a little extra complicated and requires a little more metadata to be stored, and a little more thought to go into it than I think I'm frankly willing to do at this point. But, you know, it is what it is. Anyway, so yeah, it's already going to be holding a copy of its own data, which means that instead of I basically need like a batch struct down the line for retrieving the data without actually pushing anything to the GPU, so that essentially at the root level in the draw root function for the UI renderer, I can just get all of the individual data for each panel within the UI tree, aggregate it all into a single VAO, and then start drawing. Right? Cool. So, the aggregation might be kind of expensive. Okay, but either way. So here's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna add a little to-do note for create a batch struct to pass buffer data directly to, not to the GPU, but to the UI renderer. We also need a to-do for set up each panel GitHub. You are way off, my guy. To fucking render. It said to set up each panel to fucking render. Okay. All right. Function as its own batch. That is without a doubt the funniest fucking oh my god. I'm so happy that that happened. That has just brightened my, like, I wasn't even I've been having a good day, but like, oh my god. Beautiful. Let's go back there, and then we're gonna tell you what. Can I just do that? Yeah, great. That's not the one that I wanted though. I can render 2D. Boom. Okay, so we're gonna copy those things over. Oops. Okay, there's our max quads, all of those things. Don't really care about the struct there. But yeah, okay, so now we're going to implement the UI renderer. Nope, this is UI panel. This is not going to be an unsafe function. Yeah, so Google, GitHub, why is that was dumb. My fucking tab is being weird. I think an update to Copilot screwed me up. Okay, cool. So yeah, eventually our init here should have a position, a size, a rotation, a color, and a, I guess I need to rotation, F32, color, vec4, and then texture. Okay. Why is it angry? Oh, implicitly returns that. Okay. Then we're gonna say return UI panel, and then yes, add all those things to it. I don't care about the documentation. But yeah, okay, so there are a couple of things that I want to be able to, yeah, you know what? Let me just add to set up VAO. Okay, so I want to have a draw function, right, that takes the self. But I also want to, man, it is really hamming on like pulling random symbols from my code to be like, hey, this looks like it could be the thing. It's not the thing. But again, a good guess. Okay, cool. Maybe it just means I need to organize my code better so that the AI can understand it more. Anyway. Okay, so I wanna have like the draw function where you just call draw, but I want to be able to, I think, pass in the shader program. And the reason I say this is because I don't think I should create a separate shader for all of these panels that theoretically should all be using the same shader. So yeah, I want to have a shader. It'd be a new shader program. Right. Shader program and texture. Boom. Still haven't used vector 3 yet, but I'm sure I will. Okay. Yeah, and that returns nothing. And then I also want to have a... Maybe I'll put this in primitives. I think so. I'm just gonna stub out. Oops. Don't know what I just did. Obstruct batch. That is just mod batch. And then pub create. There we go. Use batch dot star. That's fine. Okay, so then back to the panel. We're gonna include batch up here. And so then theoretically we could do pub function get batch, have a self here, and it's going to return a new batch. And that one needs to be to do. So I get yelled at when I try to use it. Okay, so I'll be able to set the position, size, rotation, etc. publicly. That's fine. It doesn't really matter either way. So I don't really need to set up like interfaces for like functional interfaces for those. And like being able to modulate all of those things is good. So I'm cool with that. I will also need to have a VAO and things. Won't really need a VAO for the panels themselves. And there's also some optimizations to be done. Like okay, so we're gonna add another to do. Set up panels to, let's actually, you know what, we're gonna say non-overlapping panels in same batch. Okay, so essentially, like if I have two panels, they don't touch, none of their things overlap, that means that I can put these two in the same batch. It's safe. Nothing's gonna like do anything weird. There's not gonna be any Z fighting or like things getting drawn on top of other things. However, when we have panels that do overlap, I have to draw the back one first. So just noting that because I will forget, and then I will like stumble over that for like an hour. I just know myself. It's gonna happen. It's fine. Okay, so I don't really want to set up the VAO stuff. I guess so that's just like some setup shit, creating render context, that's fine. So yeah, I think I'm not really worried about a scene either at the moment. Because this is all gonna be like the base projection, like orthographic projection matrix, like with absolutely zero edits, because it's gonna be a UI. Like you're gonna have your main camera in the scene, the UI is not gonna use that camera, it's just gonna go right on the thing. It technically, I think, doesn't even really need the projection, right? Like I'm fairly certain I can leave that part out. Somebody in the comments will tell me if I'm mistaken there. But yeah, just setting the data in the VAO and or not even in the VAO, just setting the data in the vectors in the thing. So really I need to go copy over some of those vectors. And then, yeah, and if I go over the thing, then I set up an extra, okay. So essentially, I need to go through, here's what we need, is we need to go here and also set up a trait alloc UI element. That did a weird thing. Yeah, that is pretty straightforward, right? Except I don't want the UI elements to draw themselves. I want to get buffer slot, no, just get vertex data, right? And so that's going to be for self, and it's going to return a vector on an ultraviolet vec4. Yeah, honestly, I think maybe get buffer data. Get data for buffer. There we go. Get data for buffer. Okay, and I think instead I want to have this return the batch, which is I need to use super batch, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, get data for buffer, and it's going to return the batch, and the batch is literally just going to be like array slices of those, like position, texture coordinates, texture IDs, whatever the fuck, you know. Okay. And so what we're going to do is essentially like build the okay, so I need to, so the batch is gonna have to have some kind of count, and so what I'm gonna do is let's start planning out the draw function. And so we need to import or use super dot UI element. Okay, and we're also gonna have pub children. It's gonna be a vec on UI on a box. There we go. Whoops. That's what we want there. And then children vec new. Cool. Okay, I'm tired of the thing not working. I don't know why, but okay, so for child in children.iterate, except we're not doing child.draw. Instead, we're gonna say let data equal child.getData from buffer. This needs to be self.children. Okay. So we're going to add data to the panel batch, right? And then actually first we're going to check batch size versus remaining space in buffer. And then, yeah, I don't care about that. Add data to buffer. And then here, we're going to say flush buffer to GPU and draw. And then this is instead going to, you know what would be really nice? Potential implementation on bash, or on the batch. Set up batch to draw itself. Like that could be nice. It knows that I like to use 3 question marks. Yeah, so essentially, like, I've got a batch, which is all of the fucking, like, vertex count, index count, positional data, like, indices for the vertices, like, it's all the things. And so if I set up the concept of a batch, then literally anything down the line that I want to draw, I just give it, like, I get the data for the stuff, it goes into a batch, and the batch could theoretically draw itself, because, like, that would be neat if I could set up a batch, or set up the get batch function here to, like, so I could just hear, like, it do this stuff, except for the flushing data to the buffer, right? And then I would, but the thing is, I really want that, I think I want something of that size, like that potential size, probably set up not on the stack, but on the heap. Which actually I could force the batch on the heap for sure. Okay, I mean, that's a potential, like, thing I could do. Yeah, okay, so here's the deal. We're already at 45 minutes into this video. So I think I'm going to end it here, which I know is not a whole lot to have completed, admittedly. Like, I am aware of that. I do have an error. What's my error up here? Private trait UI element. Did I not? Oh, I thought traits were public by default. My bad. Cool, no more errors. Just lots of warnings because I didn't document anything. But that's fine. So, possibly going to set up a batch to draw itself. Okay, sorry. Anyway, so right now we have the basics of a UI panel. I don't want to make this like a freaking 2-hour long video. So instead, we're going to stop it here. And I think probably in between now and the next video, I'm going to go ahead and set up the vertex initialization and possibly do like aggregating the data. I'm not entirely sure, you know, exactly how I want to set that up just yet. But yeah, okay. So I am going to go ahead and sign off here. I'll be doing a little bit of work before the next video so that hopefully we can jump right into actually getting panels up and running. So a lot of the, like, not necessarily boilerplate, but a lot of the code that I already did inside of the 2D renderer that I basically just need to move over. A lot of that's just going to go like gonna happen before the next video, so that you guys don't have to see that a second time. And I'll make a mention in the next one of like, you know, go look at those. So it is what it is. Anyway, yeah, so that is it for me today, friends, and I will see you next time. Hopefully it's not as long. Yeah. Bye, friends.